Thank you all for coming. We're going to dig into what it takes to take your product international. I've got a few war stories that I'll share with you today. But before we jump into that, let's just a little bit about me. So I spent 20 years in Silicon Valley, and in 2018, my family and I we moved over to London. Sort of took the road less traveled by. And I honestly think more people should do that. I think London is a fantastic city to live and to build. And I wish, Product Con and lots of other things will inspire more people to come over. While in London, Top Gun Maverick and my midlife crisis had a baby, and I became a pilot, and that's my plane. Anytime you guys want to go up, just give me a shout. Lots of nervous laughter. Okay. All right. So just 3 stories today. As I sort of like put these together, it was a road down memory lane, to sort of be part of some very incredible moments in technology. And when I share these stories with you, it's not just me doing it alone. It was with an entire crew of people. And in a way, sharing this is acknowledging their work and thanking them for it, and hope it inspires you in all the ways that I think it will. Kung Fu Panda, Slumdog Millionaire, and House are some of my favorite movies and TV shows. So I thought, it'll be easy for you to remember afterwards what we're really talking about. So let's start with the Panda. So this was the journey. Imagine, go back to 2014. Uber is an incredibly powerful and viral product. It works fantastically well in large parts of America, most developed markets. And it hinges on 2 fundamental things. One is the ability to push a button, get a ride very reliably, and then to be able to walk away without paying, right? And so a product that has that sort of 2 magic moments is going to be incredibly powerful. And so Uber knew that they had something that could scale globally. And while we could turn the service on in China, it didn't work very well. And here are the reasons. In order for Uber to work really well, you have to have thousands and thousands of drivers come onto the platform every day. And in China, it has different systems that allow us to verify who people are and all of that, and that did not exist. The next was that every country has different payment methods. In China, it was WeChat and Union Pay, and those didn't exist, and so we needed to build those. The rider experience is also very important. Where do you get picked up? How do riders and drivers talk to each other? None of this was there in 2014. Okay? And there's other layers of the stack that need to get fixed. And so you could say, that's what the global team is there for, right? The rider team is going to build all these things, the driver team is going to build all these things, and life is going to be good. And that is typically how one should approach global expansion. But when you're under time pressure, you've got a very competitive competitor in the market, Didi, and essentially it's a race to market share. We had to do things differently. And the obstacles in front of us were phenomenal. Right? We were onboarding 400 drivers a day. We needed to do 40,000 a week to keep up with the growing market in China. Because if you're a rider in China and you open the Didi app and the car is going to show up in 3 minutes, and you open the Uber app and it says 15 minutes, you're going with Didi. So in the ride-sharing business, supply is the most important thing. Okay? And I think I've covered some of these in terms of the layers of the stack. So as part of localization, you have to think about how are we going to go affect change and make Uber competitive. So the first things we did, because we knew we had to really take a fairly naive team, me included, sitting in San Francisco, maybe been to China once, right? Just think about that. All of the product and engineering folks building Uber were in San Francisco, and now 3,000 miles away, we have to compete with arguably one of the fiercest competitors in history, right? Their engineers are working, the very famous Chinese 996, right? They're working 9 to 9, 6 days a week, and here we are sort of naively taking them on. So the very first thing we needed to do, and I remember this very fondly, the China growth team, we created a team called China Growth. We met on a weekend to sort of crystallize, Travis wanted to make sure that everybody on the team truly embodied what was necessary to go win that battle. And so, as we sort of like worked through that afternoon, we boiled it down to a few things, which we call the user guide to being fierce. Like how do you happen to the world? As my team will sometimes hear me saying, these are the few things that if you as PMs or take to your team, it is going to help you build great products, right? There's the speed element. We are not in the race of just building the best product that serves customers. There's also a time element. Our investors are waiting for us. There is an opportunity cost of doing things. And so, at least in the way I operate, speed is a very important element in what we do. I love the God is in the details. Rather than say the devil is in the details, we like to say God is in the details to give our craft, a bit more respect, and so on. So anyway, so we got together on a Saturday. We came up with these principles. These got printed as beautiful stickers that everybody on the China team, in fact, lots of people at Uber would want this sticker because it was a good, being part of the family. The next thing we did was we assembled a really great team. This was the landing team. Again, as I said, we're fairly naive. We got a bunch of really strong engineers together. The operations team, very cross-functional, so we didn't want to go, just the product and engineering. We brought operations, design, research all together and started to attack, the layers of the stack. It's quite easy to do all this and then find that the rest of Uber is still working in the old ways. And so a very important moment for us was when Travis brought the entire senior leadership team in product and engineering together and said, hey guys, we're going to have to do things differently. So we've got this China growth team. They're going to need support. And so removing some of these potential headwinds, which are simply normal ways of working, rather than burden the China team with having to build those relationships and get alignment. Alignment is such a dirty word in our business. We got everybody together and really made sure that the CTO, the head of infrastructure, the head of partnerships, the CPO are all super aware that this China team was going to go out there and do some things that, would break some eggs and, it's not going to be normal, but we needed their support. So that was super important. Fast forward 18 months, we achieved a lot of this. We got 40,000 drivers onboarding every week, which, by the way, was almost twice as many Uber was onboarding in the US, in their own primary market, right? And so sometimes when you operate in India and China, the scale can be quite daunting. And but we leaned into that. We sorted the payment methods, chat and pick up notes. So super interesting. Like our competitor has the ability for riders and drivers to talk to each other. Uber did not. Okay, clearly riders and drivers talking to each other probably is something the Uber global team will build. But it's, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months down in their roadmap, right? And so what we did was we said, hey, listen, we're going to do China first things. So you hear me use the word market first. Don't do market only if you can help avoid it, but do market first. And bring a couple of senior engineers and product people from the core team on this journey so you can build it in a way that once it's built China first, this new feature, this new baby can be handed back to where it belongs, right? Inside the rider team, for example. And so in your organization, getting this right is really important. Otherwise, you have people, going off and building things that then get orphaned and can't come back into the fold of things. So that was super important. Worked with Baidu and all of that. So what was the big result of all of this? So this is a very fun graph. It sort of shows in blue all of the cities in the US and how many months, what the curve looked like over months and how many trips, right? And so I think the very first one at the bottom is New York City and so on. So Uber got better at launching cities faster and faster and seeing the growth happen. The China cities are basically vertical, right? And it is because of these things that we put in place. Great driver onboarding, and we give Uber a real fighting chance to compete with Didi. Again, remember, 3,000 miles away from where San Francisco's headquarters, Uber's headquarters was. Our competitor Didi noticed that we were gaining market share, and towards the end of sort of middle of 2017, they agreed to buy out our part of the business for $7 billion. So I count that in my book as started a company, sold it for $7 billion in 18 months. Okay. So that's the kind of stories we're talking about today. Yeah, is this helpful? So the next story is one of going from zero to hero. And this happens in Uber India. So again, Ola in India was, let's say, less competitive than Didi. And we were also started an India growth team to go tackle Ola head on. But globally, Uber, as I mentioned earlier, has this magic moment. Right? That's something that the founder will absolutely defend at all costs, right? The experience to push a button, get a ride, make that as smooth as possible, and the ability to walk away without paying, right? We all love Uber because of that. But the big problem in India was, even if we put in the digital payment options, sometimes, quite often, 20% of the time, you're on the side of the road, you have your Paytm wallet, it's got money in it, and you want to request a ride. Before Uber requests the ride, it would check your wallet to see if you have enough money, okay? And that check would fail 20% of the time. That's a pretty bad experience. Because that means you're not going home quickly that day, or you're stuck in the rain, and all the things that Uber was supposed to solve for you. And so the alternative, if you ask that customer, so how are you getting home today? They would say, what, I'll just pay with cash and get in an auto or a different mode of transportation, but I'll pay with cash. And so, I felt we should do what customers, support what customers want, even if it means not paying. And this idea was obviously quite a big dent in Uber's mission, right, to help you walk away. And Travis would, in a way, sort of like jokingly say at the all hands that this was one of the dumbest ideas he had ever heard. And that, me and my team were taking Uber back to the past. And when you say it in an all hands, all the city leaders, all the general managers in the cities are hearing you. And so everyone knew that this was a really bad idea. But Travis also added that because Uber was very principled, and we would, two things, let builders build. So people like me, if you want to build, it's not going to get in the way of it. But we're going to limit the blast radius. So if it was a really bad idea, it would not go very far. So the CEO said, I think you guys are good to go for this experiment, but because all the city general managers had heard this, not threat, but his opinion that this was a really bad idea, they became really nervous about being the first city to take, to experiment with us. Finally, the India growth team, they sort of really pushed on this, and we finally had the city of Hyderabad be the one where the first Uber trip happened. And this is the photo of Matt, who's the design and research leader for our international team, and Brion, who's the head of data science for our international team. Again, no product managers, very cross-functional, with the Uber driver, and actually paid him in cash. So this is the very first trip that happened. So, big things start small, and this was the start of something that was going to be really big. From an experience perspective, again, as a driver, you would see that you needed to collect a bit of money, and all of this was quite new for Uber, because at Uber, you would usually get your receipt a few minutes after your trip had ended, right? It would calculate how much you owed and all that back in 2017. But here we had to calculate it on the fly. So there were some technical challenges, but the real problem was just making sure that what works locally and is not understood by headquarters, you can defend like crazy, right? Crazy ideas need to be defended. The redeeming factor, so we're still talking about, going from zero, so where's the hero part, right? What happens is when you allow people to pay with cash, you don't need to hold their payment method. You don't need to hold their credit card. If I don't need to hold that credit card, why am I asking for a password? So I can get rid of the password. If I'm not asking for a password, why do I need their email? So I get rid of the email. So really what happens is, if you tell somebody, hey, do you have Uber? It's a fantastic way to get around town. They install Uber with just their phone number. They can order a ride. And this, removing steps from the onboarding flow, right? This very early stage of the journey when people aren't even familiar with this Uber thing. Wait, what is this? Like, I need to get into a stranger's car? How's this going to work? You know? Super important to growth. And so in 18 months, 70% of all rider first trips, so riders taking their first trip, 70% of them across the globe were happening with cash. And then contrary to our intuition, we thought cash is only a thing in India and in other sort of like emerging markets, but cash is actually quite popular even in developed markets, right? And especially for that first rider experience. So this is the hero moment, which is at the end of the day, this became one of Uber's biggest growth drivers, lowering the cost of acquisition because you can get a lot of people through the funnel, as quickly as possible. And I think I'm pretty proud of this moment, right? Having the CEO publicly tell people it's a bad idea, the team still perseveres, gets it done, and it becomes a surprise to everybody. That's sort of the hero moment. So pretty fun journey on that one. The last story really is about what we're doing at Tide today. And this is going to be slightly different. Rather than spin up country-specific teams and have them go very quickly and open these markets, we're doing things differently at Tide. So what is Tide? So, apart from the unfortunate naming of this and, sounds like the washing detergent company, Tide is actually a pretty cool company. We are helping, really small businesses, coffee shop owners, Uber drivers, influencers, get all of their, business, payment, financial jobs to be done in one single platform, right? So their bank account, their expense cards, their accounting, their taxes, their credit, their payroll, their employees, their, invoices, and all are managed on one simple platform. And we want to do this. We want to be the operating system for micro SMEs. We want to do that globally, okay? And obviously, everything's highly connected, right? So when a payment happens, your accounting already taken care of it. So these guys can actually do what they want to do, which is build their business and not have to deal with all the admin that is around them. So we are already operating in the UK, India, and Germany. And from a product structure perspective, this is sort of what we like to do. So if you think of, the faces on top are basically your market team, your business commercial market team. They're the ones that are running member operations and running the ads on the tube, for example, in the UK, if you've seen that. They are all in to making their country successful. And many times when they look at the global product team, right, they look at a bunch of us who basically tell them two things. I'm still prioritizing your stuff, and you'll never know when you're going to get it. And I'm a global PM, so you're just one of many countries, and so good luck to you, right? And I think that we want to change. So we believe that, this is why it's a doctor house analogy. We are the doctors. All of these countries are our patients. There's limited medicine in the hospital. They're also grown up and they understand that. But we need to have an honest conversation about it. And so we nominate one product leader from the community to be the lead product person or a group of them that faces off to the country leadership. And so together they create, for example, the India roadmap, right? And if that PM is from that market, be it German or eventually we'll go into hopefully other markets in Europe, it is really important to have that local sense, to be from there, to be able to like truly understand whether the copy is working and the marketing is working and these words make sense. Otherwise, it's really difficult to be a global team and enter these markets. So very simply, dual role with an India roadmap. It's someone who basically says, on behalf of the product community, I'm going to take care of India for us. That's what we like. The second thing that we do, again, if, CPOs and other VPs of product should take note is, how do we prioritize? And so it's sort of important to basically set some ground rules up front and say, we're a global platform, 70% of our work is going to be global. So that's how you should allocate your resources, right? A small part will be market first. Remember that market first thing I talked about? Not everything needs to start in HQ. New stuff can start in a market, and we should encourage that. And then, because we want to be this global platform, let's really, really try to be careful when we are doing things that are market only, right? Sometimes we need to do it. There's this one vendor in that one market with this one service that the government says we need to comply. We'll have to integrate with that, right? So that's an example of being highly market specific. But I set some of these priorities top down so that we can get the PMs out of prioritization hell, okay? Sometimes we need to surge a few engineers together because even after prioritization, a particular market needs, this extra surge of engineering talent to overcome a pretty big obstacle because we're running out of time. Remember, time is one of the things I really care about. And so we get through this temporary ring fencing, we can enter what we call boost mode, okay? The good news is that the more mature markets start to stabilize. They don't need market-first stuff. They don't need market-only stuff. You've already taken care of that. And they start to stabilize around the global roadmap suffices for them, right? And so this is our strategy at Tide. We're going to go into global markets one after the other, hopefully a new market every 6 months, help these micro SMEs with a fantastic operating system for them. And this is the model that we expect in our product engineering organization of someone who says, you know what, I'll take care of that, okay? Carlos and team said I should put a playbook together, so I put a flow chart together. So if you're going to go into a market, ask yourself how competitive it is. How difficult is it going to be? How much time do we have? And then you can do two forks of the road, right? You can go dream team, mindset, get that internal alignment, because this new dream team concept, other parts of your company won't understand, and there's no point in having two problems to deal with, the competition and your internal teams, right? That's just too much for anyone. And so really get that out of the way. I put a bomb there because that's likely to, if you don't do that, your team is likely going to suffer. Be open to market first innovation. What looks crazy in headquarters probably makes sense in that market, right? You have to fight for crazy. Otherwise, you won't be competitive in that market. And you have to be humble and say, you know what, our mission is over. We need to go home now. We need to bring that China or India team back into the fold. And that takes courage. People have worked for a while on that thing. That's their baby. It takes courage. We did the same thing at Uber. We disbanded our international teams, moved them back into core teams. And the other path is pretty straightforward. So in conclusion, in China, it was about mindset, a great landing team, internal alignment, and building China first. So it's one slide for you to remember. In India, it's about, really think hard about what would be competitively differentiating in your market, even if it's crazy, go defend crazy. And then the way we want to operate at scale systematically is to be able to be like a doctor, treat your markets as patients, very respectful. Have your product leaders perform dual roles and try to be empathetic to the market. Don't tell them, I'm still prioritizing, your feature will come, whenever I say it's going to come. And I hope you learned something and enjoyed this talk. Thank you.